Welcome to the channel where every secret, every betrayal, and every hidden emotion comes to light. Here, loyalty is tested, love is shattered, and the darkest truths about marriage and family are revealed. Witness the stories of devoted hearts crushed by deception, of husbands whose secrets tore apart everything once cherished. Watch as silent plans of revenge unfold in the shadows, where patience, cunning, and strategy turn betrayal into consequences they never saw coming. From hidden recordings to financial traps, from stolen happiness to shattered reputations, each tale exposes raw emotions, shocking secrets, and the devastating price of arrogance. If you're ready to immerse yourself in mesmerizing family drama, discover the hidden layers of love and deceit, and experience the ultimate justice served cold, you've found your place. Every story will grip your heart, spark curiosity, and leave you questioning how well you truly know those closest to you. A loyal heart once believed love meant surrender countless nights, soothing his stress, endless dinners waiting on the table, dreams put on hold so he could chase his. Loyalty wasn't a choice. It was the natural rhythm of life. There was pride in each sacrifice, because every small act felt like another brick laid in the foundation of a forever family. There was trust in the way those warm hands offered comfort after long days, and every whispered promise in the dark seemed real enough to build a life on. But sometimes love can rot from the inside long before a crack appears on the surface. The shattering didn't arrive with thunder. It came as a tremor, small and unassuming. A message left open on his phone, a name so familiar it barely raised alarm. Until the words twisted into meaning. Until fragile understanding clawed its way up from the depths, until horror became a living, breathing thing. Messages, photos, locations, all dripping with the kind of intimacy that didn't belong to strangers. It wasn't just betrayal by a husband, it was a knife turned by the friend who once toasted at the wedding table, whispered sisterly secrets in quiet bedrooms, and vowed loyalty until death. That moment didn't bring screams, only silence, a suffocating, slow, burning eruption beneath the skin. What hurt more wasn't even the physical affair. It was the realization that the two people trusted most had laughed, lied, and plotted behind a loyal back while pretending to cherish it. Scenes started replaying with new venom. The way he insisted she's like family. The way she lingered after dinners, offering to help clean up while stealing glances that once seemed harmless. How many times had they touched under that very roof? How long had they been poisoning the well and then sipping from it with smug delight? There was no breakdown, no broken plates or loud confrontations. Rage, yes, but not the kind that explodes. This rage brewed cold and calculated. Tears receded to make room for clarity. A decision crystallized in the silence of betrayal. If love could be killed so cruelly, then mercy had no place in what came next. Revenge would not be loud and messy. It would be surgical, precise, deliberate, and irreversible. Because nothing crushes the arrogant heart of a cheating husband more than watching everything he loves rot in his hands. Eyes opened to things ignored for years. There were passwords known, accounts shared, conversations half remembered. Slowly, every detail became a thread ready to be pulled. There was no rush. Revenge tastes best aged in patience. Instead of collapsing, strength grew. Smiles returned, not naive this time, but sharpened into weapons. There were gentle questions about his long hours, words of support as he worked late. All while every movement was tracked, every lie logged. Bank accounts were studied, lawyers consulted, evidence stored in secret drives. Every sweet moment he spent in another woman's arms unknowingly added another nail to the coffin of his perfect life. He believed everything was fine. He believed trust was eternal. He believed he had fooled the woman who once worshipped the ground he walked on. Until one morning, without warning, the storm arrived. The moment of exposure wasn't violent. It was methodical. Copies of every lewd message were shared not with anger, but with chilling precision to his business partners, to his mother who adored him blindly, to the social circle that once envied their perfect marriage. Frozen accounts made him panic. Hidden debts he secretly built for weekend escapes came crashing into daylight. The best friend who once smirked with stolen confidence found herself abandoned as coworkers whispered and neighbors stared. He wasn't just shamed, he was professionally severed, financially paralyzed, and socially exiled. Watching him unravel wasn't beautiful, it was justice. His practiced charm, once enough to disarm any suspicion, now looked pitiful against the avalanche of secrets long buried. He called, cried, begged for an explanation. He insisted it was a mistake, that love got confusing, that it meant nothing in the end. But betrayal isn't an accident, it's a repeated choice. And forgiveness isn't owed to those who stabbed the very heart that fed them. Only one answer waited for him in the eye of his downfall. He deserves every breath of suffering he once swore would never reach him. Silence came first, not the peaceful kind that accompanies deep sleep, but the hollow, suffocating quiet that follows a bomb no one else heard. Eyes dry, voice trapped somewhere between fury and disbelief, not a single tear dared to fall. Betrayal had already stolen enough, no more power would be handed over. Emotions were locked behind a calm expression while thoughts sharpened into something lethal. Grief tried to claw its way up, but vengeance pressed a cold finger to its lips and whispered, "Wait." There was work to be done. Quiet, precise, invisible work. The first move happened days later, a casual, innocent trip to the bank. A fraction here, a fraction there, so small it wouldn't raise alarms. Each withdrawal hidden behind a smile filled with practiced innocence. Funds that once represented vacations, renovations, shared dreams were now the fuel for an escape plan he would never see coming. Nothing reckless, just enough accumulation disguised as routine. Every dollar shifted was a brick in the fortress being built far away from his reach. At night, when he claimed exhaustion from overtime, research unfolded under dim lamp light. Lawyers discreetly found through referrals, vetted with care, spoken to in hushed tones behind closed doors. Each meeting meticulous, evidence shown, timelines laid out, accounts traced, loopholes exploited. Not because of desperation, but because every stronghold he believed belonged to him would soon crumble with just one signature. Advice flowed quietly from legal lips: collect more, say nothing, smile often. Meanwhile, kindness became a mask carefully worn. Breakfasts prepared, shirts ironed, soft laughs echoed at his ridiculous stories. He never suspected the icy resolve hiding behind gentle eyes, and why would he? He was too busy believing himself untouchable. Late, night phone calls he thought were secret were tracked. Restaurant bills he claimed belonged to clients matched the locations she conveniently posted on social media. Every lie he told became a thread linked neatly in a file labeled for destruction. A digital grave dug by his own deceit, waiting only for the right moment to swallow him whole. The whispers began slowly. Not threats that would be too easy, but careful drops of truth in the right ears. His colleagues, so proud of his family man image, suddenly found emails with attachments they never expected. His mother, who thought the sun rose from his smile, received anonymous messages showing her son's late night escapades in embarrassing clarity. No ultimatums were given. Only silence followed every revelation, letting his own guilt become the loudest noise in his world. Then came the shift in power. He noticed it first in their bedroom, where warmth had once lived. The sheets were clean, the smile was gentle, but something inside him sensed danger. Perhaps it was instinct, that primal fear men get when they realize the person they underestimated has become someone they can no longer read. He tried to overcompensate with gifts, with surprise dinners, with clumsy affection, unaware each gesture arrived too late. Love wasn't something to revive anymore. It had been laid to rest the moment he chose betrayal over loyalty. The final preparations were clinical. Divorce papers drafted with clauses so sharp they bled him dry. House deeds shifted, investments were routed, children's future secured under a separate trust. One last withdrawal, large enough to start fresh but small enough to go unnoticed. When everything was positioned perfectly, all that remained was to wait in the shadows of his ignorance, watching each day bring him closer to the end, clueless as a lamb fattened for slaughter. And then the day arrived. He walked in late from another fabricated meeting, smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't bought for home. Keys dropped on the counter, shoes kicked off without care, expecting routine, expecting subservience. Instead, he found a single sealed envelope waiting on the table with his name etched in bold. Inside lay undeniable proof of his deceit, legal documents outlining his downfall, and a short note written with elegance sharpened by pain. There was no screaming, no begging scene crafted for neighborhood gossip. All strength was called back into silence, because the real victory wasn't in breaking him in public, it was in watching him crack privately under the weight of his own sins. His mouth fell open, eyes wide, hands trembled as realization dawned. Control was no longer his. The empire he believed he ruled had quietly been taken apart piece by piece while he slept in another woman's arms. All that remained was a cold, unwavering truth. He never saw the storm forming in the silence that replaced tears. They believed they were untouchable. With smug smiles and interlocked fingers, they walked through restaurants and hotel lobbies, as though no one could see the slime dripping off their sins. There was no more shame, not now that he had crossed the line completely, shattering every vow once whispered in sacred trust. The so-called best friend clung to his arm proudly while flashing fake innocence, as if stolen happiness could ever replace loyalty. They wore betrayal like perfume, confident that the one left behind would simply fade into the background and disappear into humiliation. The arrogance was almost theatrical, and that arrogance became the key to their undoing. All it took was patience, stillness, and eyes wide open to every slip-up. Because he wasn't just careless with his heart or his body, he became careless with everything. Phones left unattended at night, while he showered provided a gateway. Screenshots of explicit texts, photos of them in hotel rooms, and foolish declarations of eternal lust were captured without mercy. Every exchange, every time he typed how glad he was to finally be free from boring responsibility, became another piece of damning evidence. Each graphic message was secretly forwarded, archived in hidden folders, waiting for the day truth would explode in his face. There was no satisfaction in tears, but there was power in preparation. Audio recordings were planted under the guise of routine phone calls put on speaker. He spoke freely, boastfully detailing how easily he had manipulated finances, how effortlessly he had lied about weekend conferences so he could disappear with her to beach resorts. His laugh was the soundtrack of betrayal, but he never noticed the little red light blinking nearby. He thought himself a mastermind, unaware he was the star of a damning narrative being written in the shadows. Every giggle from the woman who once pretended to be a sister dug the grave deeper. Follow. The money became the game. Financial trails, once ignored as business accounts, revealed designer handbags, expensive lingerie, and luxury getaways. Pattern after pattern traced his downfall, not wildness, but stupidity dressed as confidence. With each transaction, uncovered by quietly checking statements he had stopped bothering to hide, a timeline of deceit came together, a map of betrayal. His arrogance made him predictable. Predictability made him weak. Weakness made it easy to destroy him. Meanwhile, to the outside world, everything looked normal. There was no dramatic meltdown, no fierce confrontation. Only quiet smiles when he returned home smelling of her cheap perfume, pretending not to notice lipstick on his collar. He assumed forgiveness was forever, that loyalty meant eternal blindness. That assumption chained him to his fate, because while he grew reckless, a plan grew unstoppable. Evidence piled behind a password, protected folder like live ammunition for a war only one side knew was coming. Occasionally, whispers spread from workplace to social gatherings. They thought they were merely gossiping, but each whisper carried a seed planted gently by subtle suggestion. Someone would accidentally see a photo of the two in an embrace. Someone else would receive a message meant to warn a friend. Rumors danced just below the surface, soft enough not to alert them, yet powerful enough to build impending doom. Betrayal wasn't just personal anymore, it was public cancer. corroding his pristine reputation before he even felt the itch. The day the story needed to break dawned sunny and bright, cruelly beautiful. He arrived home humming a song, holding a bouquet clearly not bought for a wife. On the kitchen counter lay a neatly arranged stack of papers, bank statements, screenshots, transcripts, photos. Everything placed in painfully accurate order, decorated with the precise timeline of his double life. He stood frozen, confusion bleeding into horror as realization hit. They weren't just caught, they were exposed. The woman he betrayed stood silent as ever, not yelling, not pleading, not begging, merely watching while years of deceit finally snapped under its own weight. He reached out to speak, but there was no room left for words. The recordings played themselves, him mocking love, her mocking friendship, both mocking the fool they thought would never catch on. Every cruel laugh now echoed back tenfold. He begged with tears, asked for mercy, promised change, but mercy was never the goal. Mercy was never deserved. Consequences rolled in swiftly. Colleagues received links of his escapades. His mother wept over shameful truths, and even his so-called soulmate slithered away once her sugar-coated future crumbled alongside his bank account. Justice tasted sharp, cold, and perfect. He forged his own destruction. All I did was hand him the mirror. It only took one night to burn everything he had built. There were no police sirens or smashed windows, only the sudden and violent eruption of truth being forced into every corner of his pristine world. One carefully planned message went out to his colleagues, a link, a folder, a password. Inside it, the kind of evidence that made grown men double over in shock. Photos of him wrapped around the woman he once swore was just a friend, screenshots of explicit confessions, recordings of laughter at the expense of the wife he pretended to cherish. Business partners who once toasted his integrity read every vulgar line he had written behind closed doors. Within hours, they cut him loose, terrified of association, scrambling to salvage their own reputations from the fallout. Simultaneously, a separate package landed in the inboxes of his family and friends. This one curated more personally faded wedding photos placed beside timelines of deceit, their beloved son exposed layer by disgusting layer. His mother saw the dates, realizing that while she praised him for being a faithful husband and hardworking provider, he was funding romantic getaways with the woman she once welcomed into her home. Old school friends removed him from group chats, sickened. Neighbors stopped waving. The judgment was swift and brutal, but it wasn't baseless gossip, it was truth served raw and undeniable. The worst hit came from a local news blog, hungry for scandal. Someone sent them a tip anonymously, along with enough digital proof to confirm the affair and financial fraud without question. By morning, whispers became headlines. Respected businessmen caught siphoning funds to carry on double life with wife's best friend. There was no chance to bury it. Every attempt he made to call in favors, scrub articles, beg reporters, came tumbling down as fast as he dialed. Because the story wasn't just scandalous, it was deliciously damning. A community darling unmasked as a coward, liar, and cheat. Business deals evaporated, invitations rescinded. He phoned old friends, pleading for someone to take his side, but betrayal left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. Even the woman he risked everything for couldn't handle the fire. She watched her own job become threatened once colleagues saw the videos of them sneaking kisses in the office parking lot. Her parents received audio clips of her mocking her best friend, their faces crumpling in disappointment. Under pressure, she started to crumble, snapping at him, claiming he had promised protection. He tried to comfort her, but his own foundation was reduced to ash, job gone, partnerships fractured, bank accounts frozen due to internal investigations. While he was drowning, more blows surfaced. His private text messages leaked online. Strangers laughed at how wildly he boasted about outsmarting a loyal wife, calling her dull, predictable, replaceable. Those words spiraled through social media until his name trended for all the wrong reasons. Trolls dug deeper, uncovering more skeletons, old flings, shady self-glorifying comments, minor lies that now looked massive in contrast. By midnight, his reputation wasn't just harmed, it was annihilated. He tried to reach out, stumbling toward the house that once held his future. Instead of comfort, he found emptiness, as if the heart of the home had evaporated overnight. Bare walls, missing furniture, and his belongings boxed coldly by the door. Only a single letter waited for him on the counter. It held no insults, no anger, just a chilling reminder. Every secret you buried became the weapon that destroyed you. He sank to the floor, clutching what little remained, begging a silent room for a chance to turn back time. But time never grants mercy to those who squander trust. As his phone filled with termination notices and friendship cancellations, everywhere he looked he saw proof that his world wasn't collapsing, it had already collapsed. Every promise he once offered lay broken alongside his career, his identity, and his pride. Deafening loneliness swallowed him, because when truth finally comes, it doesn't knock gently, it kicks the door off its hinges and leaves no room to breathe. He fell apart inside the ruins of his own betrayal. Everything he built on lies began to crumble quietly, piece by piece, long before anyone noticed the cracks. The mansion, once a symbol of prestige and carefully curated perfection, suddenly felt hollow, like a shell hiding rot beneath polished surfaces. Every ornate corner, every expensive fixture he flaunted, became a reminder that appearances can deceive, and that deception carries a price. The truth, once buried beneath years of charm and manipulation, started to seep into every corner of his life, slowly dissolving the foundations he believed untouchable. Bank accounts he thought were his alone were frozen without warning, the culmination of months of careful planning and discreet legal maneuvering. Transfers, withdrawals, and hidden funds were quietly reclaimed, rerouted to secure places beyond his reach. Panic didn't arrive with a scream, it crept in through missed notifications and declined transactions. The small, silent horrors of suddenly realizing that access, control, and wealth could vanish in the blink of an eye. Every card he swiped was declined. Every bill reminded him that the empire he had built on the backs of lies was slipping through his fingers. Luxury items that once made him feel untouchable vanished quietly. Designer clothes, expensive watches, and glittering jewelry disappeared under the watchful eyes of quiet allies. He walked through rooms that once made him proud, only to find empty drawers, empty shelves, and empty walls where treasures of vanity once lay. The realization struck harder than any confrontation. Could no amount of money or status could protect him from the consequences of his own choices. Every material comfort became a testament to arrogance punished. Every possession a symbol of betrayal finally meeting justice. The social world he had manipulated with charm and carefully chosen smiles began to shift under the weight of exposure. Friends who had once laughed at jokes that mocked the loyalty of a spouse now turned away, distancing themselves with polite excuses. Colleagues who once toasted his success now murmured in the hallways, reading carefully delivered evidence of deception and infidelity. Invitations to gatherings stopped arriving. Warm messages of admiration turned to cold silence. Reputation, that fragile crown he wore with pride, cracked irreparably. Every hand extended in friendship became a mirror reflecting his shame, a truth he could no longer hide behind clever lies. And yet, the collapse wasn't limited to wealth or reputation. Emotional exposure, painstakingly built over years, now became the axis of ruin. Fake smiles, so carefully cultivated for cameras and social media posts, now looked empty, grotesque, and obvious. Every practiced charm that once disarmed suspicion now appeared as grotesque hypocrisy. Colleagues, friends, and family who had once believed in his impeccable character now saw him for what he truly was, a man who betrayed trust at every turn, whose greatest skill was masking cruelty with charm. Each encounter became a reflection of failure, each gaze a reminder that deceit carries consequences no charisma can erase. Even in the quiet corners of his home, he could not escape. Evidence of betrayal, once stored meticulously and silently, appeared at every turn. Documents, recordings, and messages displayed with calculated precision. There were no alarms, no dramatic confrontations, only the slow, inexorable realization that nothing remained under his control. The life he had built on another's loyalty, trust stolen, affection manipulated, now fell apart brick by brick. Every interaction became a warning. Nothing bought with lies can survive truth. He tried to fight back, frantic, clinging to fading illusions of power. But it was too late. Bank accounts offered no solace. Social status provided no shield. Luxury had no comfort. Each attempt to reclaim what was lost only reminded him of what he had squandered, a constant, stinging echo of mistakes made in arrogance. He had believed deception could be sustained indefinitely, that loyalty and love could be manipulated without consequence. But reality, relentless and patient, had been waiting for the moment to strike. And when the dust settled, he found himself alone, stripped of wealth, stripped of influence, stripped of the false identity he had worn so proudly. The empire of lies he had built lay in ruin, each brick a testament to betrayal exposed, each foundation stone an echo of the trust he destroyed. Nothing remained but the quiet, undeniable truth. Everything he had was lost, and it was deserved. The house was silent, heavier than ever, as if it had absorbed every scream, every lie, every stolen moment he had once thought hidden. Outside, the world carried on, indifferent to the collapse within these walls. But inside, everything he had ever built on arrogance and betrayal lay in ruin. The mansion, the cars, the carefully curated social life, even the friendships he prized above all gone, stripped away by the precision of patience and the relentless logic of truth. He looked around in disbelief, as though seeing the wreckage for the first time, but it was no accident. Every loss had been meticulously planned, every consequence deliberate, every domino set to fall at the perfect moment. He did not speak at first. Only the soft, uneven breaths of a man realizing his world had shifted beneath him, and there was no ground to hold on to. Hands trembled as he reached for the phone, dialing numbers he had once believed were extensions of power and influence. Calls went unanswered. Texts remained ignored. Emails bounced back with polite yet cutting refusals. Every avenue that had once allowed him to manipulate, to charm, to cover his tracks, had been closed, locked, erased. The humiliation was exquisite in its completeness. It was not public, because there was no need for crowds to witness him broken. The shame was private, intimate, suffocating, felt in every corner of the home he had decorated to flaunt perfection. He knelt clutching documents he had once considered insignificant proofs of loans secretly siphoned, invoices hidden in plain sight, messages mocking loyalty that had been his shield. It wasn't anger he felt so much as cold, paralyzing realization. Every choice, every betrayal, every reckless act had led to this inevitable, merciless reckoning. And then he looked up, eyes searching for the face that had orchestrated his ruin. He expected tears, rage, perhaps even pleading. Instead, there was nothing but stillness, a calm so absolute it burned him. The silence carried power. It was the quiet that demanded acknowledgement without speaking, the kind of presence that rendered excuses useless. He opened his mouth to speak, but words failed. Begging felt hollow against the magnitude of what had been undone. He tried to claim remorse, to explain, to justify, but it was like shouting across a canyon. No echo returned, no mercy waited. His lips trembled as he finally whispered what he had always feared might come. Forgiveness was being withheld. The one he had betrayed did not respond, did not console, did not forgive. Every apology he offered was met only with measured calm, the kind that turned his fear into its own cage. Each statement of regret reflected his own guilt back at him, amplified and undeniable. Every lie he had told, every betrayal he had committed, weighed on him like chains forged from years of deception. For years, he had manipulated and charmed, believing that loyalty was something to exploit, that trust could be bent, stretched, and broken without consequence. He had thought himself untouchable, invincible even. But now, stripped of illusions, he saw that control is never permanent, and arrogance invites ruin. The life he had built, the career, the home, the image of perfection had been carefully dismantled without haste, without a single dramatic gesture. Each brick had been removed quietly, deliberately, until he found himself standing in the ruins, staring at the emptiness he had earned. Even when desperation took hold, when tears streaked down his face and his hands shook over what little remained, there was no pity to be found. There was no reaching out, no sympathy, no easy reprieve. The calm presence watching him, silent and unmoved, was more terrifying than any shouting or confrontation could have been. He had expected vengeance to be loud, theatrical, visible to the world. Instead, it had been methodical, complete, and utterly inescapable. Every attempt to manipulate, to bargain, to plead, met only the steady, immovable truth that he had created his own downfall. In the quiet of that destroyed world, he finally understood the meaning of what had been done. Not revenge for revenge's sake, but justice earned through patience, precision, and the careful collection of every betrayal he had thought buried. It was a reckoning for the lies, for the stolen trust, for the intimate cruelties inflicted under the guise of love. Every moment of humiliation he endured was the natural consequence of his own actions, each one magnified because it had been anticipated, catalogued, and delivered with absolute certainty. There was nothing left to negotiate, nothing left to explain, nothing left to apologize for. His empire of deceit had collapsed entirely, and the face he sought for forgiveness remained calm, unshaken, untouchable. Every plea he whispered, every groan of regret, bounced back at him like the echo of all the pain he had caused. He deserved nothing, and nothing he received could ever be called mercy. If this story left your heart racing and your mind questioning the truths we often overlook, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable tales of betrayal, secrets, and revenge. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story where loyalty is tested, justice is served, and every twist of fate leaves you breathless.